Hey guys, welcome to the Live Sports in New Mexico show. Well, we're talking about the life of an athlete, the life of a coach. We're really kind of, trying to think about, how we could apply our sports life to regular life and what we can do, maybe in the outside world, off the court, off the field, as well as on the court and on the field. So if you're a coach or an athlete tuning in, thank you for doing so. And we just want to give you guys advice, encouragement, and what you're doing. We know personally that it's tough to be a player or tough to be a student athlete, tough to even be a coach. And we sometimes, get discouraged, but hopefully today we help you out. My name is Chris. I'm my co-host here, Pastor Brian.
That's right. My name is Brian, and always glad that you're with us. We were two former athletes ourselves. Go Lobos.
Yes.
And so hopefully what we do have to say and share helps you, just like Chris said, on and off the field, on and off the court. And, the one kind of tagline we always say is that life is a sport that God wants you to win.
Yes.
And so we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about March Madness that all wrapped up this week, and then get into more from there.
Yeah, so saw the game last night. Villanova took it, and I think last time we talked about that, and I just had a good feeling about that team. I mean, because it was a really good team. I think it was the first time in a very long time. I think North Carolina was the only one to do this, but they beat every single opponent by double digits in the tournament, and I think it really is their togetherness they had. They had guys coming off the bench and producing a lot of good minutes, a lot of good production, and so I really think it was their togetherness that they brought. There was one, I think it was last game where they had, one guy fell and like all four guys sprinted and it helped them up, and I think that's a good symbol of a team. So it really is. I think it is tough to stop a team. Because I know as a coach, when they have like one good play, you see maybe they score like 30 points a game, and then the other guys maybe score like 5 or 4 points a game or whatever. As a coach on the scouting report, you tell them, hey, if you just stop that guy, we win the game. And so that's usually pretty easy as a coach. And so, but if you have a team where, we got to stop this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy. So I think that's what Villanova really brought. They could have went inside, they could have, post up, they shot from three. They just had all these different dynamics of their game, and that's really hard to stop when you could score in different ways and stuff like that. So when you have, all those things working together, that's what brings championships, I think.
Absolutely, and they were the favorite team, clearly, throughout most of the tournament, and I think everyone pretty much knew that they were at least going to be one of the top teams there. And really, togetherness is key. Well, last week we talked a lot about teamwork, and today taking it a step further, because teamwork is great, but togetherness, I think, is maybe another level higher. Yeah. And obviously Villanova had that, and it helped them be successful. And I think if we can get that in our lives, we can be successful at whatever we do. We have that togetherness, those good relationships with people, we're going to be better off. And what are some other things you noticed about Villanova that helped them be successful this year? Well,
again, it was kind of like a bigger and stronger, Loyola team. They were kind of the guys that, they didn't care who got the credit. I mean, I can't pronounce his name. It was like Vincenzo or something like that, some crazy name. And this kid comes out of nowhere, and people are like, what? This guy, scores 31 points off the bench. Shows us athleticism, and I think the starting point guard Jalen Brunson, the Player of the Year, he's on the bench watching all this happen, and he's his best cheerleader on the bench. You can see him; he's jumping up and down. All right, he's helping, And so I don't think when you have a team like that doesn't really care about who gets the glory, I think that's where it starts. Because I think sometimes, especially in today's world, where after the end of the games, I've seen it in my locker room, or I've seen in other locker rooms, they go straight to their phone and see who mentioned them on Twitter, who has their highlight dunk on there. And so they're all focused on them, instead of where I think a better locker room is like you're talking to your teammates, like, hey, that was a cool play you did. You're talking about these different things. You're laughing it up. You encourage each other. So I think that's what probably Villanova had more than anybody, because you see a lot of these other teams, They had a lot of good superstars coming out of high school, but I think they had this thought process of like, well, I'm going to the NBA. You know, I'm already on the draft board. I'm a lottery pick, and I think I'm going to the NBA. So I think a lot of those guys on those teams are just like, oh, whatever. But
And let's talk about that for a second, because that's one thing that I don't like about college basketball is that you only have to play 1 year before you can go to the NBA. And I think that actually hurts a lot of teams, which is exactly what you're saying. You can't get that real family unit, that togetherness, that teamwork. And then you have a lot of selfish players. It almost creates a culture of selfish basketball because everyone's playing for themselves. Everyone's playing for their own stats. They're playing to get their rank higher on the draft board, and you lose. I think what the game was really meant to be all about, and that's that team, and that's that togetherness. How, as a coach, do you combat that?
It is tough because it's like almost a whole new team each and every year. And that's when I was picking my bracket. I was like, well, I'm going to pick the team that has a good mix of veteran players and some good freshmen.
And then you don't even, like, as a fan, you know, you don't really get to see, like, or you don't really get to know the players.
Right.
Like, if there's a senior, you're like, oh, I remember that guy, and you can follow the guy through the career. But then you see these guys that come and go, who's on that team again? Where were they go to college? Oh, they get drafted. They went to the NBA. Who are these guys? I don't even know. And just to be honest, it makes me not want to follow it as closely. And so I just think, especially now, how can we develop young players and teams to be more team-oriented, to be more together-oriented, not be all about themselves?
Well, I think you look at this team, you look at Villanova, and, you know, as personally, even as an athlete, as a coach, a lot of times you're judged on your championships, like we talked about last time. So I think when players watch this, I think coaches, what they should do, our coach did this. When we lost in the playoffs, he would have us go watch the team we lost to. And then he would have us go watch the championship. And it wasn't fun for us because we're like, we should have been there. We should be celebrating with the confetti coming down and all that stuff. And so I think once you see that as a player, I think you will do whatever it takes. You'll be unselfish. And I think that's what we just need to, what guys need to see. They need to understand that, especially in this game of basketball, and there's, I mean, in football and in all games that are team sport, team oriented, you value, it's cool to have these records, these individual records, but man, nothing beats a championship. I watched it last night. I was like, man, it's cool to see that. I remember the Mountain West, games, winning that championship, all the people coming around.
And that's so
awesome.
Much better. You said nothing beats a championship. And I think that's the mindset we need to have. And that's the mindset we're going to talk about today. How can we get there? How can we be about that? So stick around. We'll be back in just a little bit.
Up the middle to Cedric Johnson, spins in, touchdown, Cedric Johnson.
Comes the squeeze, it's a beauty. No chance, he'll throw the runner out, gets away.
Nobody at second base.
Nobody home.
Cuts back towards the middle. Bray, a lot of room out in front. He's in! Touchdown! Back outside. Same spot out to right. Martinez going back, still going on his horse, and it's gone! A two-run homer for Roy Jennings. It just kept on sailing.
Bill Cox comes on, makes the catch. We're going to have a double play, and that's going to be the ball game.
They set him in motion. Got time to throw. Still surveying, going to the end zone. Caught! Caught! What a catch from Dello! Gonna take a high hop. The front man, Dello Davis, will take this one. He's running behind Bray. Davis has a hole. He's got one more man to beat. He didn't get him. Now he's going to cut right, and he answers for the touchdown. We'll let that one get back to Dello Davis. Davis turns on the jet. A lot of green in front. He's got the kicker to beat, and he's not going to touch him. That's a touchdown for Dello Davis. Get it to Bray. Antonio. Oh! Hurdles in!
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Welcome back, guys, to the Live Sports in New Mexico show. Today we're talking about togetherness. We just saw a great Villanova team do just that. I mean, they helped each other off the floor. They were excited for each other. So I think it's really, really important for us to see that, maybe as athletes or as coaches, and we see that really is the recipe for success. We got to get guys together. Even in this life, we know that we can't do this alone. And we try to do it alone. The world can definitely eat us up and spit us out because, I mean, it's tough out there. People do try to manipulate you, whether it's with money or trying to persuade you to do something. Maybe it's with drugs or alcohol, something the world is trying to, attack you with. But I think when you surround yourself with good people, you care about each other, I think that's where it's really important for us to be successful on the court, on the field, and also off the court and off the field. And this is another topic we talk about a lot, is that we want to be a superstar in our role. Not everyone can be the superstar. Not everyone could be the best player. Not everyone can score the most points. But it is being a superstar in your role because that's how teams work. I mean, you even see it in like bands. Not everyone could sing. Not everyone's doing drums. Not everyone's doing guitar. But you have this one band, one sound, and it's making it all come together. And so that's what I think we really need to understand and really get this thought under us, is that we have to be a superstar in our role.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we talk about togetherness and how important relationships are. I think some key principles we've talked about on this show a lot before, but, you become like who you hang out with. You've heard the saying, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. All those things, we are better when we're together. Relationships are really important, not just for us, but then we're important for someone else.
Right.
Like someone else needs us. So if we're not willing to be the best we can be, we're actually hurting other people. We're hurting the other people around us, the people we're surrounding ourselves with, because just as much as we need others, we need good friendships and good relationships, other people need that too from us.
Right.
We have to be a good friend. We have to be a good example. We have to set that tone, set that bar. I just comes to my mind, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, the Bulls back in the day.
Right.
Like, they all made each other better. Jordan, of course, was maybe the greatest of all time, but if he didn't have that great team around him pushing him, maybe he wouldn't have been as good. And of course, Scottie Pippen wouldn't have been as good without Michael Jordan. You might not even know who Scottie Pippen was if he didn't have a Michael Jordan. And so we need that, and others need that from us at the same time.
And I think a lot of people, like we talked about last time, we get caught up in like, well, Jordan needed Pippen, Kobe needed Shaq. Well, yeah, you need these guys around you. You need good players and good people around you. And I think that's what you could even see in the NBA. A lot of guys are joining forces. I don't necessarily agree with them doing that, but it elevates everybody else to play better. And I think that's what our influence is in life. And like you talked about, I think that is our strongest suit, really, is our strongest character, is how influential can we be? And I always tell my students this. It's like, you guys are, I look at them, you guys are friends, right? How do you make them better? And sometimes they're like, well, I don't know. Well, that's what the friendship is. You guys are making each other better, right? You're seeing what they do. They do something nice for somebody else. Like, okay, I want to go do that. I remember seeing that, when I was roommates with some of my teammates, when they started cleaning up in the dorms, I was like, I want to clean up too, because we share this. This is, we're roommates. We should be helping each other out. And so I think that's what we need to see with our athletes. I think we really need to see that where they're just coming together, they're helping each other get better. They know, like, hey, don't try to influence someone to do something bad, because even if maybe you don't play as much, maybe you don't care as much, but there is someone else that does. And then if you try to influence them, like, oh, you could do these drugs, it doesn't matter. But they have a game the next day and they play a lot of minutes, maybe you don't, and you're like, well, it doesn't matter because I don't play as much.
Right.
But so that's what I think we need to be careful of too, especially if guys are, once you elevate your game, once you show that, hey, you are taking it seriously, other people, again, are going to try to manipulate you, try to say, oh, you're so great, you should, train with me, or you should be on my team. I could promise you this, I could promise you that, and then it doesn't fall through. So I think we just need to really be careful of the influences we have and who we listen to. And again, we always result back to, is it God's voice? Is God sending someone to help me, or is that someone that's trying to use me instead of, help me?
Yeah, that's really good. It's something to definitely be cautious of moving forward. And baseball is getting fired up right now as well. And to me, I think that is a great example of a team sport. And as you mentioned earlier, being a superstar in your role. I mean, if you think about it, you got first base, second base, shortstop, third base, you got right, left, center field, pitcher, catcher. You got all these roles that are key. Like if you don't have a third baseman,
that's a big gap.
you're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
You have these gaps.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it just shows like teams really are important. Like, yeah, you could be a great player, but if you don't, if you're missing something, or if there's a gap, then man, you're in big trouble. And in the same way, like you want to make sure that whatever sport, you're making others better. Even in business, you talk to a CEO, they'll probably tell you they're great because they have great president and vice president. They have great managers. They have great employees. Like they're not doing it all by themselves.
Right.
And they're careful in the selection process.
Right.
Just as you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's where we could miss it too, because then it's like, oh, well, I get the credit, and it was like, no, there's something about being together, and and I like that too, because then the pressure's not always on you. It's not always on you to do well or whatever. So I think, and baseball is what I see. I played a little bit, but sometimes you could see like a hitter, he's ready to knock it out of the park and be the one to win the game maybe. But if you get a few base hits, okay, you put people in scoring position and it's easier to score. Maybe you get another single, here comes a guy from second to score instead of trying to hit out of the park, and then maybe you pop it up and then that's an out. So again, it's always just taking that, okay, what do I need to do? What is my role here? What do I need to do? Jalen Brunson yesterday, he got in some foul trouble. Another guy stepped up. He knew, like, hey, I just need to encourage this guy. I don't need to sit here and pout, because it does get contagious. Yeah. I've seen it from some players. They get out of the game where they're not playing at all and they're just pouting, and you look at it as a teammate, it's like, man, it brings you down too. But I knew even as a teammate, especially when I didn't get much playing time, I was energetic, always standing up, being the first guy to high five them, give them advice, about things I'm seeing. So I think that's what's really important. Sometimes when we're down and out, the best thing we can do is encourage others and be their best cheerleader.
That's awesome. Love that. And so we've talked today about how important togetherness is and being a superstar in your role. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can do that, how you can apply that to your life, and so you can be a superstar no matter what role you're in your life. So you don't want to miss it. Stick around, and we'll be right back.
Nothing completes a trip downtown like a visit to Lindy's Cafe. You won't find a more relaxing restaurant to unwind at. Located on 5th and Central, proud supporters of Proview Networks, Lindy's strives to be a friendly and welcoming place.
Lindy's, a great place to be seen.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Welcome to the Live Sports of New Mexico show. Today we talked about togetherness and being a superstar in our role. And so we really learned a lot from Villanova and what they did in this tournament. I think, winning by double digits, seeing their togetherness, they really exemplified what a team is really about. And we talked about how, if you focus on that, if you're seeing these championship teams, you want that more than anything. And so I think that's really important. I hope you guys have taken that. But now it's the time where we go over Brian's famous three-point play.
It's always a swish, everybody.
Always.
The three-point play. Now, one of the ways that we can have successful togetherness is like what Chris said earlier. We've got to be a superstar in our role. We have to know our role, our area, whatever that is for you. Maybe it is a student, maybe it's an athlete, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a mom, maybe it's a dad, maybe it's an employee, maybe it's a boss. We all have a role to play, and we can be a superstar in it. We can win in that role. And I just want to give you 3 quick things that you can do, that you can apply, that can help you be a superstar, that can give you the success and help you become a champion like we saw Villanova this week. So number 1 is this, and I'll give you all 3 of them real quick, and then we'll break them down. Number 1, work hard. Number 2, trust God. And number 3, got to keep a good attitude. So number 1, Chris, working hard, why is that so important?
I just think that when you work hard, you're just able to, everything else comes easy to you. I think in life, when we think about all the things that make us nervous, is because we're not prepared. And so I think a biggest thing about working hard is that it gives you a chance to give your best shot every single time. It's like, you look yourself in the mirror and you say, I gave my best shot because I worked hard at this. This is, you have no regrets. And I see you see a lot of teams that when they lose their last game of the season, they're crying, and the first thing you think about is like, man, we were right there. We could have did it, But if I would have just worked a little bit harder, and we talked about this last show, how you don't want to be there again, and so you want to work harder and harder the next time. My teammate Tony Snell, I was following him for a long time. He's in the NBA now. He had a really good quote about working hard. He said, if you work hard, you don't feel pressure. And it was after one of his first games. He was, he's a rookie, and he's starting. He's playing a big crowd, and this reporter asked him, do you feel pressure out there? I mean, do you feel nervous? And this is the quote he gave it. He said, if you work hard, you don't feel pressure. And I think that's so huge because you kind of imagine the game. I think, that's what I did. I imagine the game when I'm by myself. I imagine the crowd in the game. But when I'm in the game, I imagine myself in practice. So it kind of slows things down a bit. But if you add that kind of game-like pressure on you in practice, and you try things that you really you don't know if you're comfortable with yet, but you get it, and you try to get it until it is perfected. Then when you get on the court or on the field, then it's like, well, this is just like practice. I know how to do this. I think it's when we get to the point where we try to do something we've never done before, and then it in a game-like situation, and then it doesn't help us. And I think that's what, even like our bodies are made that way, to where when we kind of exert ourselves more than usual, our muscles start to cramp up, because your body's saying, hey, slow down. And if you don't slow down, and your body's like, well, I'll slow you down, and you cramp up. And that's what we kind of see sometimes in sports. We see people cramp up because they're doing things that they're not used to. But
Right.
I think when you work hard, when you push yourself, maybe to that point, it's like in a game, like, well, hey, I went farther than this. In practice, I've practiced maybe 3 hours, and the game's only 2 hours. So I think that's what's really important. We got to just kind of put that extra work in. When you put that extra work in, everything else comes easier. I think even in track and running, when you run a little bit, when you run more than you're doing in a track meet, then it's like, okay, well, I've ran longer than this.
Right.
I could run a shorter distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you reminded me, we did a afternoon workout session today, and one of our good friends, Omar, who was on the show once. He's the guy that froze up with the question about the masks. You may have remembered. Not, you can go back and watch. Pretty funny moment for us here at the show. But anyway, we're doing a little afternoon workout, and he's not really the workout type, so we're doing some squats and some push-ups and some curls and different things like that, and we didn't work out very long. Yeah. We didn't work out very hard. But guess who's catching cramps and can't walk all of a sudden? My man Omar. And it just goes to show you, if you're not used to the hard work,
right,
it'll catch up to you when you try. And a quote I love is failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So number one, got to work hard. Number two, trust God.
Yes.
We got to trust God, because the truth is there's some things that happen to us that just aren't in our control. But we have to know that no matter what happens, God is in control. And we can trust God no matter what.
Yeah. I've seen that in my life many times when, a lot of times we have these decisions we're going to make, or we're waiting on a decision to make, or someone to make for us, and we're just waiting. When you have that text and you're seeing that and you see the bubbles pop up, you're like, what's going to be the response? And you're waiting, and sometimes it's like, well, God's in control. You have to wait. I remember when I was getting the job at Legacy, and it was a few days after the interview before they called me and told me that I got it. But during those few days, it was like, am I going to get it? I don't know. But again, you come to peace when it's like, whether I get it or not. I prayed about it. It's like, I always end the prayer like, if I get it or not, I will still honor you. And I think that's what we have to think about with winning and losing. Sometimes we go into games like, are we going to come out strong or whatever? That's what we saw with Villanova last night. Michigan came out pretty strong. But Villanova eventually throughout the game just kept it consistent, because I think they just trusted the process of the game. They trusted their game plan they had. And so I think that's where we need to get to a point. It's like, hey, there are going to be things that are lingering. God's going to have you be patient in a lot of things, but you have to trust Him through that process, because if you start worrying about other things, you're always going to think the worst case scenario, I think. Sometimes like, oh, am I going to get it? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go after if I don't get this? But I think we truly need to trust the process we're in, with a plan that God has us on. And when I came here to UNM, same thing. I was thinking of quitting. I was like, man, should I? Whatever. People were just telling me, just finish it out. And I believe God was saying, like, you know what, do so. Finish it out. You may not like it, but something on the other end is going to be rewarding, and it was.
Yeah. So work hard, trust God, and then number three, really important one, keep a good attitude.
Yes.
We know that life isn't always about what happens to you, but how you respond to what happens to you. And it's just better to be around people that have good attitudes. Bad attitudes, they can be contagious. They can drag you down.
Right.
And so if we can keep a good attitude no matter what's going on, we're going to be better off. We're going to be a superstar in our role.
And I think it becomes contagious. Like any good attitudes can become contagious, and so does bad attitudes. We even see it in sports, where like in baseball, if one guy's hitting good and then the next guy's hitting good, and then they're like, you see this rally going. Momentum. Yeah, and they're going through maybe all 9 guys, because it's contagious of the hitting. And same thing with shooting in basketball. Maybe someone's knocking down a shot, another one's knocking down, and you feel this goodness about like, hey, we're pretty confident right now. We're playing at a high level. And I think that's the same thing with life. You see something, man, they just always have a good attitude. You just look at them. They always have a good attitude. Even when things go wrong, they have a good attitude. I need to do the same thing. Yeah,
it's attractive almost.
Yeah, and I think that's what it influences others. I think when I see somebody do that, I'm like, man, I want to be like them. Whatever they're about, I want to be about too. And the same thing with bad attitudes. It can be contagious. You see someone complaining, like, well, maybe you start complaining too, because maybe that is going wrong. But no, I think complaining can definitely lead some bad influences in our life. So like you said, both good attitudes and bad attitudes can be contagious, but it's the good attitudes we want to keep having.
Right. So if we want to be a superstar in our role, we got to be willing to work hard, trust God, keep a good attitude. Then we will be that superstar. We'll have that togetherness with those around us, and we'll be champions, just like we saw this week. So thanks so much for joining us today. Hope you have a great rest of your week. God bless you. See you soon.